Hey there, welcome back to the next episode of the Mass Business Podcast. I am your guest host, Matt Ward. I'm the high five guy. That's right. In October 2021, I wrote a book called The High Five Effect, How to Do Business with People Who Bring You Joy. I hope that you pick up a copy of that. You can do so at highfiveeffect.com. You can also pick it up on Amazon. We'll have all the links in the show notes, both on the description on YouTube and in the show notes on the website and on social media. So thanks for joining us. I got a great guest for you today. Our guest is Paul .falewicz. He's with Succentrix Business Advisors in Billerica. They help business owners save 5 to 7 hours per month by taking the accounting function off their to-do list. They monitor your business finances so that you have the time to focus on selling your products and services. Now, here's the thing I know about Paul. He is a huge sports fan, specifically hockey, but many other sports fans as well, including golf. He participated in the big event, and what you might not know is that he shot a hole-in-one at that event in August of 2021. It was the talk of the town, and all he got was a silly little t-shirt. We'll talk about that on this episode of the podcast. Are you ready? Let's go.
High five the world. I'm feeling alright. High five the world. Yeah.
Welcome to the Mass Business Podcast, where small business owners, also known as risk takers, share their stories about the growth of their business and themselves. Our interviews and our content is focused on growing a small business and understanding networking and referrals. I say it all the time, and I'll say it again today. You never know where your next referral will come from.
High five the world.
Hey, welcome to the show, Paul. Thanks for coming.
Hey, Matt, thanks for having me on today.
Absolutely. Well, this is the first time I've had somebody on the show who I know specifically has hit a hole in one. So congratulations on that.
I think it's the fourth best thing that's ever happened to me in my life, so it's right up there.
Oh, you've ranked it now.
I've ranked
it's the
it, yep.
fourth best thing.
Yep. Wife, kids, all those things first, and then the hole in one. So I mean,
Yeah, that was
first and probably only one in my life.
And it happened at what one would say was a golf tournament, but really was a networking event, right? You showed up to this networking event, and on a par three, you hit a hole in one. I ran the networking event, and there was no car. there was no $1 million prize or whatever that sometimes happens at these events, because we didn't want to attract golfers, right? We wanted to attract networkers who like to golf versus golfers who like to network, right?
Yeah, I believe in the background you can see my blue T-shirt that you sent me as the thank you for winning it. So
There you go.
it would be nice to have a Lamborghini or a nice car, but hey, a T-shirt, it's second best that I can think of right now.
There you go. So in under 30 seconds or so, why don't you just tell the listening audience and those watching on YouTube what it is you do at Succentrix?
My goal is to help business owners understand their financial statements, understand their profitability, understand their cash flow so that they have money to stay in business. They're busy doing a million things, but finances are always the last thing they focus on. So that's where I step in and make sure that they stay in business and have as much money as they want.
hmm So I have always felt that outsourcing, I mean, look, that's primarily what your service does, right? You're an outsourced arm of other companies, meaning that when they don't want to do bookkeeping, they don't want to do this financial management work, they outsource it to someone. Sometimes they'll hire someone, but sometimes they use a third party service like yourself. I've always felt like outsourcing is a big component of growing a business. Are you finding that the people that choose to outsource this type of service, whether it's to you or anybody else, have more growth and more growth potential in their business?
I think if somebody makes a decision to outsource something that they don't have a great understanding of, they're trying to grow their business and they're trying to get better. They're admitting that they don't have the knowledge that it takes to be able to get to that next level. So, they're going to someone that has more knowledge than they do, and it's hopefully putting them in a better position. And that's what my goal is with my clients. I want them to be in a better position. I want them to grow. I want them to understand more of what's going on within their business, of where their revenue sources are, where their cash is coming from, what they're spending the money on, so they can focus on selling their product. I mean, again, sales drives a lot of what happens with these businesses, but when you outsource to someone has a specialty in a certain area, you're admitting that you don't have that knowledge and you want to get better, and that's what I want to see businesses succeed. We all want to see businesses succeed. We don't want to see anybody struggle. We don't want to see anybody putting up the for sale sign in their front window. We want them to succeed, and that's where that outsourcing, I think, comes into play for a lot of small businesses.
Yeah, and I think so. Are you outsourcing a lot in your own business? I mean, different tasks, website services and other types of things. Are you outsourcing a lot?
I outsource a couple of things because I'm part of a franchise. A lot of the website and some of the social media content kind of goes through them, so I don't have to.
Hmm.
I guess it's technically outsourcing because I'm not doing it myself and I'm paying them a fee to do it. So,
Hmm.
in the broad scheme of the term outsourcing, I am doing that. So, but I think it's important to find the right people to help you. I mean, you don't know everything. You usually have one specialty and that's what you focus on. So, for me to find those things is finding someone that can help me and get me to a better position. And for a small fee or whatever I'm going to pay them, you look at that return on investment and you make sure that it's worthwhile.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about your business. When did you get started in this business?
I got started back in the middle of 2018. I was in the corporate world for over 20 years. Got laid off early in 2018, and just had trouble finding a job at that point.
Yeah.
I was trying to, you get very particular in what you want, certain culture, size company, salary, all the different things that you run into looking for a business, and just couldn't find what I was looking for at that point. And I saw a video on LinkedIn about the franchise and said, "Hey, that's something I know I can do." So went on a tour, had conversations with some other business owners that had franchises, and a couple months after that, I'm in training, and then all of a sudden, early July, a business owner, and have to try to make this work, and it took a lot of sweat, it took a lot of sleepless nights. There was a lot of issues early on, like anything else when you start a
Hmm.
business, but almost 4 years later, I have absolutely no complaints, and I feel like I where I want to be, and I feel like I've only touched the surface of really where I want to go.
So 4 years, 50% of that time has pretty much been in throughout COVID, right? What was the impact on COVID to your business?
I'm going to thank COVID for my business. My business doubled during COVID. The main reason was all the PPP loans. A lot of
Oh,
businesses had to give financial statements to the banks in order to get those loans. All of my clients were able to get in day one because they had financial statements. And then through word of mouth, through people that I know, all of a sudden more clients started coming because they heard. So as the second and third rounds came around, they knew that I was going to be able to get the information to the banks and to the lending sources so that they were able to get their loans so that they could stay open and they could continue paying their employees at that point. So as much as we're not big fans of pandemics, from a business standpoint, for me, it was probably a good thing. I felt like I probably would have grown without the pandemic. However, I think the pandemic accelerated it just because of the needs of all these small businesses that were shut down and needed this money in order to continue to operate when they weren't able to open their doors.
right. Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because while I do and am aware that there are businesses that have not made it through the pandemic, have found that there are more businesses that have made it through the pandemic that I know of and done better than those that have not made it through. Are you seeing something similar?
I'm seeing, for me, it's either a business succeeds or they don't succeed. And the main reason why they don't succeed is that they're not adapting to what's going on today. They're trying to do it the same way they did it 10 years ago. And I've worked for a lot of businesses like that over the years, and the owners want to keep it to that small little company that they had when they started. But, today in 2021, 22, things change at this point. So you need to be able to adapt to what's going on today. And I think that's where a lot of business owners struggle. And unfortunately, those are the ones that are, unfortunately forced to close their ship and, not able to continue their business at that point. So in order to be successful, you have to be able to adapt to what's going on today. And the business owners who adapted, who found the new ways to do things in the middle of a pandemic, had a lot of success. The ones who continued doing it the same way and relied on their old habits, unfortunately, struggled, and some of them had to shut their doors and weren't able to continue.
Yeah. What do you think the biggest thing you've done in these first 4 years to grow your business? What do you think the most successful thing you've done has been?
Looking back, and I pay attention to where my revenue sources come from, and I tell people to do this all the time. 80% of my business has come from networking.
Mm.
So all various groups that I'm a part of, all various people that I've met, a binder of 1,500 business cards over the past couple of years, has all led to my business growing. And it's just being, as I call it, reliable and have strong business understanding of what's going on. That's what's kind of, I feel like, has set me apart from other people who do exactly the same thing. I mean, there's thousands of accountants that do the exact same thing I do. I kind of take it from a little bit of a different level, but ultimately it's, debits and credits in accounting class. There's really no difference that comes into that of what I do, but I look for different ways. But the networking, which I was, to be perfectly honest, I was 100% against when I started the business. I didn't think it was going to work. I didn't think it was something. I wasn't really I like people I could have conversations, but I didn't think that people would be calling me like they do now, pretty much weekly, to give me a referral or two to talk to one of their clients or talk to someone that's there. It's kind of changed the way that I do. And now I make sure every single week I carve out a certain amount of time in order to do networking, to get to events, to talk to people, to catch up with them, send them a card, send them an email, text, whatever the case may be, to stay in touch with them, because it's helping my business. And without it, I might be one of the few that didn't have a business and back in the corporate world and working a job where you're not having fun.
But you're busy, right? I mean, you got plenty of clients. So why are you making sure to carve out time to network each week if you're busy?
You never know where. I had a client, honestly, I had a client that fired me in September.
Hmm.
It wasn't a surprise. I figured he was struggling. He was probably gonna, have some challenges financially by the end of the year. We were probably gonna, part ways at that point. But I have room for growth. You're always looking for the next opportunity. In the small business world, I'm going after 20 or less employees is kind of my little niche that I'm going after. Especially with this gig economy that's going on right now. There's so many people that are starting their own businesses, and there's so much opportunity that, again, to outsource, I carve out a certain amount of time for each client every month. I'm not filling up the entire month that I'm wall to wall for 12 hours a day. So there's always room for growth. There's always things to find, and there's also new things to do. I mean, I find clients who, recording studios, they're singers, they're auto body repairs, whatever their business may be. It's interesting, and that's, I like the business side of it more than the accounting side, and understand what their struggle is, and then make sure that they're growing to whatever size they want to get to.
Yeah, I mean, this is the old adage around the challenge with marketing and sales, right? Is that when we're really busy, we're working the business, we're doing the marketing, we're not doing the networking, and then 6 months from now we wonder, oh, what happened to all my business? You know, where's the new clients coming from? Because the thing, the work what I tell people is the work you do now pays off in 6 months.
I mean,
You know,
it's 100% true. I mean, I tell clients all the time. I go and I talk to people, and I don't sell. I mean, I'm not a salesperson. I'm an accountant by trade, so I'm a little bit of an introvert, and I'm not that salesperson that's going to work a room and hand out 20 business cards. But I know the people that I talk to. They might not walk away with a strong feeling at that point, but then something happens a month or two later, and they remember a conversation with me, and they come back and say, "Hey, I remember you said that you helped somebody else with that exact same problem. I'm having that problem. How can you help me?" So
mm,
I think it's one of these things where it's not a today thing. I'm not selling a product that you're going to walk away with. I'm not a retail shop where you walk in, get a piece of paper, and then walk out with something tangible at that point. It's something that's down the road, and I feel like you always need to be marketing. You always need to be showing where your strengths and weaknesses are, and how I can help people. So, and I'm as a business owner now, one of the sleepless nights that I have every once in a while is that every single client fires me. So what happens at that point? I just hired my wife this year. We're having a growing business, and now 100% of our income is now coming through this business. So if everybody were to walk away, what do I do at that point? So I always feel like there's always room to continue that marketing, continue reaching out to people. And you don't. I used to spend 20 hours a week on it. Now it's probably down to 4 or 5 hours a week. So it's not taking up a lot of time, but it is now connecting with the right people versus before I was connecting with everybody.
so what are you looking for when you connect with people?
I'm looking for people who are kind of built out of my same mold. They're reliable. They know what they're doing. They're not going to BS somebody just to get a sale. They're going to be truthful. They're going to be reliable. There's a lot of things that you kind of you see there's a lot of people that do the same thing, and there's a person that does it the right way. There's a person that does it the wrong way. I'm always looking for the person that's doing it the right way.
Hmm.
When working a relationship, so that when I need that product or service from one of my clients, I know that they're going to be the ones I reach out to as much as they want to reach out to me. So, when it takes a couple times talking to the people, it takes a couple times getting an understanding of, if you reach out to them at a 6 o'clock at night to say, "Hey, I have a quick 2 minute question," whether they pick up their phone or not, that type of thing where you try to be available all the time, but I don't expect someone to pick up a phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning because I'm up late working and doing something. I understand that side of it, but just to be able to get back to you within a reasonable amount of time and be able to help you and know that it might never work out to be something, but this time might actually work out to be something else down the road.
Yeah, I mean, I think. Hmm. And are you when you do the networking, are you looking for the referral sources or the clients?
I'm looking for a combination of both. I mean, I
Yeah.
feel like I can help anybody, but I'm looking for a combination of both. There's again, when all these networking events, there's business owners who are doing the outsourcing stuff, and then there's people that are truly just the referral sources trying to find somebody for their clients. So, there's a combination of both that go in there. But I've kind of learned early on in the networking, it's again getting to know the people, having that conversation, not selling. They ask what I do, I tell them what I do, and I tell them stories of how I've helped people, and then they have to make the determination of whether they're gonna like me or trust me down the road.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's a it's a challenge, right? Because it's about and I think when you came into networking, tell me a little bit about what you were thinking, what the turnaround time would be, and what the work involved would be.
I honestly thought it was gonna be a lot quicker. I thought people would be, walking out and, you'd be signing a contract the next day and everything would be going quickly, and then you kinda learned, and I learned it from a bunch of people, and, the successful networking people always said the same thing. It's, have a couple conversations with the people, get to know them, go grab a cup of coffee, know them over the long term. We can all make our first impressions when we see people of what they're going to do, what they're going to bring to the table. But, it was three or four different people that I connected with that kept saying the same thing. So I knew it was going to take some time and I knew it was going to take some effort. And, unfortunately, when you start a business and you have zero revenue, but you have a lot of costs going out the door, you kind of get a little bit nervous. But what it was, excuse me, was it started to pay off over time, and then all of a sudden, it all paid off at the same time. So all that hard work and all those conversations with everybody, then all of a sudden your phone is ringing off the hook. You're getting emails at all hours of the night to say, "Please talk to this person. Please help out my client here." And then before you know it, you have a business that's growing, and now it's you're taking a different tactic where first maybe 6 months of my business 30 to 40 hours was networking, and now it's down to a smaller amount, which is still required, but it's not something that's going to be taking away from my revenue sources and generating money for my business at this point.
How do you think of networking? Like, I mean, you mentioned a couple things about it and why it's important to you and what you thought about it before versus now. Um, but how do you think of it every week now as it relates to your business? Is it sort of like fuel for your business? How do you prioritize it?
Yeah, I mean, I prioritize it. I'm a part of a bunch of groups, so obviously there's dedicated times that we have meetings. So you got to
Hmm.
make sure that, and I've I've made sure that those times are always, the hour or two for the meeting is dedicated towards that group. Nothing else is going on, so that I can pay attention to it. And then you look for other fillers during downtime that you might have. You might have a Thursday afternoon free, so you reach out to someone to see if they want to grab coffee or get together and have a drink or something. You try to fill that time so that you're able to continue that relationship, you're able to continue that growth, and you feel good about it. Um,
Hmm.
it's there are times that are dedicated, and there's other times where it might be spur of the moment because nothing else happens to be going on, or you're trying to fill your calendar because it's kind of quiet, or you haven't had a chance to talk to somebody, but they can only talk to you at 4 o'clock on a Friday. So that's the time that you pick in order to talk to them at that point. So you try to clear your schedule out so that that's free as well to have those conversations. So it becomes important just to make sure that you're carving out time to do this, the amount of time you want to do is obviously up to everyone else. I've kind of mastered it where it's about 3 to 5 hours a week, and it's giving me enough business because I've already dedicated a lot more time to that. But I also have clients I have to take care of. I have other work to do. So I would love to spend 30 to 40 hours a week on it and really grow the business, but I don't have, you
Yeah.
have to do other stuff. So you got to kind of balance your time. And I don't want to be working, 8 to 8 every single day for 7 days a week.
What I appreciate that you said, Paul, was that you carved the time out, meaning you put it scheduled in your calendar. I think a lot of people in networking aren't doing that, and therefore they're not making these weekly groups consistently. They're being absent, and then what I hear from people on consulting calls is networking isn't working for them. I'm like, well, okay, well, your attendance isn't great. You're not learning about other people in the group. It's everybody, it seems like, comes to me from a networking and referral perspective, wanting more referrals. But yet, when I ask them about giving referrals or showing up or doing one-to-ones or doing the work necessary, I get a lot of blank stares, right? But the process that you've actually just laid out, the fact that you just start with your calendar and that's where it all begins, right? And then you show up to those meetings and you do more. That's what really gets that snowball rolling. And I think a lot of people need to understand that they got to start somewhere. And by getting into some group somewhere, somehow, it doesn't matter what organization it's with, consistently, showing up consistently, you're going to build those relationships that it takes.
Well, I mean, it's like anything else. If you dedicate the time and you dedicate the resources to it, it should work. I mean, a lot of these things are proven. There's enough networking groups out there that do a good job. But like anything else in the world, if you're going to only do it halfway, you're only going to get halfway results, and you're going to complain about it. So, I kind of
Mhm.
early on in my life, and the way that I was raised, it's if you're going to do something, you got to do it to the fullest. If it doesn't work, then you move on to the next thing. But as long as you put that time and effort and dedication into it, you know, it should work at that point. And then if it doesn't work, then you have to sort of reassess there. And it's the same thing like a business. Everybody wants, I know that I can help everybody, with their accounting, with their taxes, with whatever they need. However, I know there's people that aren't going to reach out to me for whatever reason. So I'm fine with that. But I know that there's enough opportunities out there. But if I were to just wait for everybody to come knock down my door, it's just never going to happen. So you
Yeah.
kind of have to get out there. You got to knock down some doors every once in a while. And the networking is the easiest way to develop some good relationships. I mean, I go, we have dinners or golfing or something
Hmm.
with these people that are outside of the business side because you're getting to know them, their family, their significant other, you start to meet their kids, and they start asking you personal questions, which you start becoming more of a friend than it is a referral source at that point, and it becomes a much better relationship for the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you mentioned the word resources, which makes me think. One thing I always like to ask people about: what software would you recommend to people who are listening and growing a business, which could be a game changing tool or software for their business?
On the accounting side, there's a couple programs that you really need to have. You need to have QuickBooks, you need to have Zero, you need to have Wave. There's obviously different price points to all of those softwares, but in order to run a business, you need some sort of accounting software that's keeping track of your numbers. And with the automation and with the cloud today, you can do it from anywhere. You don't have to be in front of a computer anymore. You can do it on your smartphone. You can do it, in the middle of a hike in the woods, and check to see where your bank statement, your bank balance is, what your bank statement says. But you need to have it there because I've seen a lot of people that have it in their head, or have it on a back of a cocktail napkin, and it's just not good enough.
Yeah.
Some people are smart enough and you can remember a million things, but if you have 100 something transactions going through your bank every month, there's no way you're going to know every single one of them and making sure they're in the right place and understand really where it's going. So, some sort of accounting software. QuickBooks is the brand name. They do commercials. You'll see them all the time on, every single a national network. And Zero is a company that's a little bit smaller than QuickBooks, but does the exact same thing. Wave is good for really small business owners because there's no cost to it. You can pretty much pay nothing for it, and get the same thing that a QuickBooks or a Zero is going to give you from a basic standpoint. Once obviously, like anything else, when you pay a little bit more, you get some more bells and whistles with QuickBooks and Zero. But just having an accounting software is key to a lot of businesses. And I've worked with a lot of people that don't have one, and they don't have an understanding of where their business is. So without that, you can't make good decisions to grow your business to where you want to get it to.
Yeah. Speaking about growing a business, one of the questions I always like to ask is business books. What are your favorite business books you can recommend that other business owners read?
I have an app called SoundView, which does kind of like a Cliff Notes version of all the business books out there. So every single day, there's 2 or 3 of them that are popping up that are new. I just kind of listen to whatever the challenge of the day happens to be that my client might say I'm having. So, unfortunately, a lot of them are quick, like 20-minute listens. It's more of a the old Cliff Notes version of
Yeah.
a book, which we all did in high school to get out of reading a 500-page book, but we still needed to write a book report. So, you read a book, there's a lot of different things in there. And, you just want to find the good information. And if it's something that's not, predicated to you, you're not spending $30, $40 on a book and throwing it away. This service is $100 to $200 a year, and you get access to every single business book out there that they have on audio. So,
Hmm.
and I listen to it for walks. I listen to it, if you're in the shower or something and you just get a quick little dose of something, and, it kind of learns things. The big book that everyone talks about, which, a lot of people ask me about, is the Profit First.
Yep.
To be able to look at that, which I agree with. I don't. Some of the things you can't pull off on a small business. He tells you to have 5 different bank accounts. A lot of businesses have trouble with one bank account, but
Yeah, but
there,
I have 16.
there are some things that you can take out of it to understand where you don't have to get all those bank accounts at that point. But just kind of the
Yeah.
understanding of what he's saying is putting your profit away, having one for taxes, so that there's no surprises when you need the money. It's all there. You pay your bills. You're never behind, and
I'll tell you
it
what,
doesn't screw
Paul.
up your credit repayments.
When I fixed my financial house, got my financial house in order. When I took Mike's McAllowitz's Profit First and mixed it with Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover, and I took the pieces out of each one of them that I was comfortable with and that worked for me, and then I created a system, my own system, which is sort of merging the two together, and that is why I do have 16 bank accounts, because the way my brain works is when Mike McAllowitz talks about why it doesn't work to do it in a spreadsheet, when a lot of people just want to do it in a spreadsheet and keep all the money in the same account. But when I look at my account, I look at one specific account, and if the money's in that account, I'm like, oh great, I can go buy a new side by side, right, or a new car or something like that. And I can't. That's not how this works. So I move the money out of there so that I'm not seeing it, and because I know that's how my brain works. And his concept of taking the whole old school diet, which is eat off a smaller plate. You know, you when you make your plate smaller, and you still fill the plate, you will eat less food based on that principle, Pareto's principle. And so he did that with the money side of it, which I think makes sense. What I have found after recommending Profit First to literally anybody I know, um, is that is that it it's complex for people to implement right off the bat. They don't understand where to start. And so what I tell them to do is it's really simple. I want you to set up one single additional bank account and call it profit, and take 1% and just put it in it. And that's it. Just start with that. And then that's how I did it. And so I did that for like 6 months. Then I started the tax account. Then I started, because you start doing all these accounts and then moving money, it gets a little crazy, and complicated. But implementing Profit First, I read the book in 2016, implemented it in 2017, and sold my business for far more than I should have sold it for in 2018. And it was solely because of Profit First. And so I attribute a lot of that. In fact, I'm super stoked. Mike actually endorsed my new book, The High Five Effect. And I got to know him because I was on his podcast talking about that journey of implementing Profit First in my web design company. I'm a big proponent of it. It's not for everybody, obviously, if they don't, think differently. But one point you said was, if you can get to a way to automate things, right? You automate your bills. You can, because I always had the money to pay my bills. I just didn't have the time. So I started putting everything on recurring, right? And that for me helped me actually get the payment paid on time. And it's just it's a comforting feeling knowing that things are moving, transfers are moving every week, and I don't have to worry about it.
Again, you have to adapt it to what you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
And there's good concepts in the book. again, it's not for everyone to be able to do it exactly the way he wrote it in the book or exactly
Yeah.
the way you did it, but you adapt it to yourself of what you're comfortable with so that you're not spending all this time keeping track of everything. I mean, 16 bank accounts. I know you have a lot of money and you're close to being a billionaire, so you have to have it in all these different accounts because they'll only cover so much.
Well, I have my
However,
Blue Origin account. That's the money
yeah,
for me to go to space,
people
right?
who, normal people who don't make as much as you do, it's a little bit different. It's a little easier to keep track of
Dude,
with all the people
it's
you're
so funny
outsourcing
you
to.
say that. 16 bank accounts. I think one of them has $5 in it, right? So the funny thing is, like I have a travel account or I have an ATV account. So I put stuff in the ATV account because that's where I pull my money to go on ATV trips and pay my ATVs and stuff like that. Um, it's so interesting because like if I'm gonna do a big vacation trip that I think is gonna cost 10 or 20 grand or something, and it's gonna be say 3-4 years out, I'm just gonna start an account now for that and just save it for it. And then I'll change the name of the account when that trip is over. I can change the name of the descriptor in the bank, and so once I take the trip, I'll just change the name to something else. Um, and so but it took time to get there too, right? Like to your point, it doesn't happen overnight. There's baby steps along the way.
I did the
And
same thing that you did the vacation account. We went to Italy with the family 5 years ago. We put a couple $100 away for a couple years, and before you know it, you're paying for the trip in cash,
yeah,
right at the spot. So there's nothing, all we did was pay for meals when we were there. Everything else from, the airport to, the rental car, everything was all paid for so that we had
and how
no out
good
of
does that
pocket
feel,
expense.
Paul? That it feels so good. And that's a mix of like, so Mike's stuff is on the business side, but then Ramsey's stuff is on the personal side. It's like a mix of the two. It's you basically did an envelope, but you did it in an account, right?
Yeah,
And Ramsey's idea
it's
of
the
the
same
cash envelope.
concept. It doesn't
Yeah,
change. It's still you have to. I tell people all the time, if you make $100 in your personal life, you can't spend $120. The same thing in business. It
yeah.
doesn't change. You can only spend what you have in that bank account or what you have there at that point. So we don't want people to go negative. You don't want people to go into bankruptcy and have all these problems, personal or business wise. But you have to spend within your means, and that's a lot of people have trouble doing that. And as you said, and it's just one of these things where it just takes time for discipline. And once you see it work once, you're going to repeat it. And then before you know it, you never have another problem again.
There you go. Yeah. And that's the key, right? Is having that win, having that see it work once statement. Once you have that happen, you start to say, "Oh, this works." Right? And now it just keeps going. So listen, this is great stuff. I could talk about profit first. I mean, I don't like to talk about numbers, but I like to talk about success, right? And that's what some of these things have helped me achieve, and that's why I'm so passionate about them for other people. And like I said, I could do this all day, but we want to be cognizant of the listener's time. We're hitting that point where it's time to wrap it up. But before we go, if you could just share with people, they want to get in touch with you, they want to network with you, they want to learn more about you, they think you may be a great referral source for them or vice versa. They want to talk about profit first, whatever it might be. How can they get in touch with you, Paul?
3 simple ways. You can get in touch with me on my website, which is succentrix.com/paul.falewicz. You can email me, paul.falewicz@succentrix.com, or you can reach me on my phone, 978-987-3200. And I'd love to connect with people and help them out as best as I can.
Awesome. And so for those of you watching on YouTube, we'll have those links in the description. We'll also have them on our webpage in the show notes. And for those of you who are listening on the podcast, just check the show notes in the favorite podcast app that you got going on. So thank you so much for coming on the show, Paul. Greatly appreciate it. If you are listening on your favorite podcast app, go ahead and hit subscribe. We'd love to have you as a fan. Feel free to leave a 5-star review for Paul. Not for me, because I know it'll probably be a 1-star, but since we brought Paul on, it should be a 5-star podcast review. And if you are watching on YouTube, then smash that subscribe button and hit the notifications so you get notified of every episode we put up on the channel. Until next time, don't forget to live happy, smile a lot, and high five everyone around you.
I'm waking up this morning, gonna grab myself a smile.
Thank you for listening to the Mass Business Podcast, where we focus on growing a small business and understanding networking and referrals. Don't forget to like on your favorite platform and share out this podcast. This show has been produced by Heather Grant, music by Celtic Kelly, all rights reserved. I'm your host, professional speaker, author, and word-of-mouth referral consultant, Matt Ward. Don't forget to live happy, smile a lot, and high five everyone around you.
Feeling alright. High five the world. Yeah, yeah, yeah. High five the world. Make a difference today. High five the world. What a thing to say. Do you feel what I'm telling you? There's really nothing to it. It's just an attitude.